Hello, everyone. My name is Donna James. I'm the Associate Director for Alumni Affairs based in Los Angeles. I am super excited to be doing this boot camp this week. This is our second session. Yesterday, we did a resume CV workshop with our Career Center rep. His name is Andy Chow. And that was really well attended. If y'all are interested in the recording of that, we'll be sending that out. We're recording all of these sessions, so if you are making it to this one, but maybe can't make it to tomorrow's, but you're interested in it, just know that they'll come out in a future alumni newsletter. We're recording everything. They'll all be accessible to you, so don't worry about it, especially with time zones. We want to make sure that they were accessible to everybody. It's really hard to get a time that works for everyone around the globe. So yeah. I'm super excited to be presenting this. This is one of the panels that I had in the works before times when we saw people and were out in the world. We were already planning on doing this, so it was really easy to repurpose and move to this virtual space, and I'm really excited that we got to keep doing it and having this conversation. These four folks are super passionate about the topic. We had been speaking about the different strategies and how much anxiety our community can feel about networking, that word. I talk about that a lot with most people because it is my personal pet peeve. I like to make authentic relationships, and from what I see in the alumni community, that is what really is the engine that drives our careers. So I am super excited to be welcoming the four folks here. Let's go around first and just do a little bit about your journey and why this panel topic resonated with you. Let's start with Eric.
Hey everyone, my name is Eric Kalver. I am a Berklee alumnus. I graduated in 2009 and with degrees in drum set performance and contemporary writing and production. I moved out here almost 11 years ago. I wasn't sure if I was going to move out here immediately to LA and then talk to some teachers and then just kind of went for it and did some networking, hence the topic, and found my way out here through some non-music jobs, which led me to wait and build up to music jobs. So in the 11 years that I've been here, I mean, the networking I've done within terms of like working at Johnny Rockets, being an extra on a TV show, working as a production assistant for the Daytime Emmys, like all that kind of stuff has kind of led me to the things I do now and the relationships I have. So I'm currently the music supervisor at Activision, where I'm the music supervisor at Tony Hawk, the new reboot, Call of Duty, Guitar Hero from the past like 5 years, Crash Bandicoot, all these different games. In addition to that, I am also a drummer, as you can see behind me. I'm also an arranger and composer. And this topic, as I was starting to say, is really important to me because I feel like it's really how I got to where I am today. If it wasn't for the friends and relationships that I built, I wouldn't be here. If I, wasn't an authentic person, people wouldn't like me and they wouldn't ask me to do things with them. So it's taken a while to build up the contacts I have and the relationships, and that's why I wanted to be here today to say, like, not only is Berklee a good tool for networking, but outside of Berklee is also a great tool for networking, and we'll probably dive into that a bit. So that's a little bit about me.
Beautiful. Nira, let's hear from you next.
Hi, I'm Nira. I am from Wisconsin. I graduated Berklee in 2010 with a dual degree in, starting to forget, classical composition and piano voice performance. It's been a while since I had to lay out my credentials. Yeah, I live in Highland Park now in Northeast Los Angeles. And I, most of my career since moving out here has been as a touring musician. I'm a keyboardist, as you might see, and a backing vocalist and music director. And so I've been around the States and around the globe a couple times with some pop artists. And more recently, I'm finally finding my way professionally into the production and songwriting world. That's something that I've always done, but that's taken a longer time, I think, for me to get those relationships in place. But I just had my first song in a movie, the Netflix movie Feel the Beat, which seemed to do very well with the family crowd, and I had a song that I custom wrote for that, which I was very excited about. And yeah, I mean, so many of my touring jobs have actually come from the very first friend I ever made when I moved into the 150 dorms. We were running buddies my first semester. We'd go running along the Charles a couple times a week, sometimes with Roger Brown, which was fun. And that friend, that dear friend of mine, has now led me to some of my most exciting work and is still, you know, one of my most treasured relationships. All that to say is that I am such an introvert, and the one-on-one relationships have been where it's at for me. And I think in the beginning it was harder for me to navigate the whole networking scene. And, you know, I was very nervous about it and very self-conscious, as probably a lot of us are. But over time, I've really come to appreciate like my strengths as you know, being able to develop one-on-one connections and sort of seeing how that has actually served me very well, to be authentic and to be honest with the kind of relationships I want. So yeah, hopefully, you know, we can all sort of share some of that with everyone else, because I know it's a scary world out there, but happy to be here, happy to share.
Thank you, Nira. Cheche, let's go over to you.
Sure. Hey everybody, my name is Cheche Alara. I graduated Berklee way before anyone else on this panel, like many years before anyone else. I finished in 1994. I went to school for what is called now, it's a professional writing, but it was called arranging. But you know, my focus was on arranging. I came to LA in '95 to do a master's in jazz studies, which was a combination of jazz and classical music, actually, both performing and composing and orchestrating. And I've been living in LA ever since. I'm originally from Argentina, and I have to put it, you know, to make it easier to be understood. I agree with everyone else, you know, this far. Everything that has happened in my music career had to do with relationships, with interacting with other people, with reconnecting with other people, even years after you meet them for the first time. Running into people that you have worked with in projects many years ago, and seeing, you know, how checking in with them and seeing where they are in their career, where you are, and I think you know, building relationships and taking care of those relationships, it's a crucial aspect of what we do. So I'm happy to talk about this. I think it's a you know, probably at least as equal as our music chops, at least, and occasionally could be even more. So anyway, happy to be here.
Happy to have you. And Dom.
Hey, I'm Dom, class of 2019, so newbie in the alumni fam. But I dual majored in songwriting and music business. I'm passionate about music, as we all are, but also networking is what even allowed me to graduate from Berklee. Because one of my mentors was Roger Brown's next door neighbor. And I needed scholarship money to come back my second year, and she just walked next door and was like, give her a scholarship, basically. So, you know, I'm really passionate about networking because all of my relationships have allowed me to come this far. Just building relationships within Berklee allow people to be able to see what I was passionate about. That's how I got my internship after graduating, which turned into my job now as a coordinator. And all of the freelance work that I've been able to do during COVID, honestly, I have to say I've worked more in the freelance space during COVID than I did before it, because I had just built up a reputation of being dependable, being able to work remotely, being sending things on time. And so all of those relationships then came in handy because I was immediately able to activate all the relationships that I built. So and everything that I've been able to do has affected my friend group as well. So, and we all understand that we're interconnected. So I'm also passionate about networking or relationship building, because it doesn't always have to personally benefit me, but if I can connect one of my friends to an opportunity, then I want to do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, all of you. It's a good segue. Look at us with our questions. Dom, you kind of touched on this, and Nira, you mentioned being an introvert. Can y'all talk about the range of advice that we get as students, and then going out into the world? What was your relationship with networking at that point, and has it changed over time? What's your thought process around it now? Let's mix it up, and I'll just go with Nira because you said the introvert words. You talk a little bit more about that.
So how has it changed over time?
Yeah.
I actually thought about this ahead of time, because I was like, I only am looking ahead always, and I'm trying to like remember. But I mean, what comes to mind is like how self-conscious I was coming straight out of school, and how I mean, there's sort of an added thing for me, and I don't know, who else would relate to this, but I'm an only child, first of all, and also I was homeschooled in a rural area. And so Berklee for me was like literally the first time I had seen people and lived amongst people, and especially obviously so many musicians. So I had that like rich 4 years of learning how to sort of speak the language, and that learning how to interact with people. And then coming out to LA, I think it was very intimidating for me. I was lucky to have some really good friends who were a year or two older, who had already moved out, and sort of were able to offer a hand for initial things. But I would just like go to shows and not know anyone, and sort of introduce myself to the keyboardist who was on stage. And there was a lot of like sort of cold calling type things, but luckily there's so many cool people here in the music community, I think, in general. But I think over time I sort of I started wanting to integrate my Berklee experience with the other communities that are here, the USC people, the MI people, the self-taught folks. There's a lot of different sort of little webs here. And now, by now I can say that it's, I have equally friends from sort of all the different scenes that I work in. And that's really helped sort of, take my Berklee experience, which I've been able to transfer and talk to anyone, and, it's been very translatable. But now I can kind of like pick and choose, like I need a drummer, I know that like this person with this style, or I need someone that can like really like speak the Berklee language in this way, and I can call this Berklee friend. So I sort of have like a more rich and developed, friend group now, and peer group, that I don't feel, I feel like I belong here finally. It took a while to sort of feel like I have my people, but now like I have someone to call for pretty much anything, whether it's having coffee or calling them for a gig, so I'm definitely more like settled now, which is a really wonderful feeling, but it was not always like that.
Resonate with that. I don't think that's unique. I feel like we all feel a little lost all the time. But Cheche, can you speak a little bit too about how it felt for you coming out here when you did? I know you mentioned it was a little earlier, but you work in so many different spaces, just like Nira mentioned, bringing these communities together.
When I came to, there were no freeways when I moved to LA. There were. It's not that long ago. No, but what made it easier for me was the fact that I came to study, and I going to USC gave me some kind of a system, some kind of a network, whether I liked it or not. But there was some routine. I had to see other people. I can only imagine how intimidating LA can be if you just moved here by yourself. It's even from a graphical standpoint, you don't see people. You walk out of your place and you might walk 3 miles until you see somebody. So it's not an easy place. I think, again, in my case, what made it easier was going to school, going to keeping my studies going. It was a very different experience than Berklee, by the way. USC is a completely different world. But again, I met people. Back then, we had a lot of, well, that was one really good thing about that era in LA is that there were a lot of clubs with live music, a lot. So you could very easily, work every night at a different club playing different styles, which is what I did. I was working no less than 5 nights a week, and again playing everything from jazz, Latin jazz, pop, rock, and everything. So that was a really good, again, network. By default, I fell into different networks, right? And you start meeting people. I think if whenever you move to a new city and whenever you change your circles, having some type of structure is extremely helpful. In my case, again, at that time was going to USC. But whether it's that or finding, places where people hang, places where people interact with each other, hopefully as close to your interests as possible, but even if they're not necessarily exactly what you're looking for. If you're a film composer, and you're probably not going to find a place where film composers hang all the time right away. But just by being in places where live music is going on, you can hang out with people and meet people that work a couple of degrees away from where you want to be. That's always that naturally will open doors that otherwise, again, particularly in a city like LA, I don't think you could find any other way to make them, have those doors open for you. Because again, we're all very isolated in this city. Anyway, that's in my case what helped a lot. People that I met back in Berklee, some of them we still work together, hang out. I have, it's super cool to see people that I met in my case, literally, 30 years ago, almost, close to 30 years ago. It's a long time. That was a long time, and we still somehow, in this crazy race, and some of them are just friends, and we don't really work together anymore, and some of them are people that I still work with. Same with the people that I met at USC. It's, I think we are in different, again, by far the oldest person in this panel, but for everyone in this panel, and even people that are younger, we go through chapters in our lives. You have your friends from high school, your friends from college, your friends from post-college, your friend, like early 30s, mid 30s, it happens. And it's cool to see how you can, when you look back, I'm in my mid 40s, I just turned 47. So I look back and I look at, wow, I kept a lot of people from each of those chapters. And that's really good when it happens naturally. The one thing that I would like to introduce to this conversation is I believe the key is for things to happen naturally. The moment you try to force anything, people can smell that 2 million miles away, and it's not going to work for you. People are going to run away from you. It's not a good to be that person who's like pushy and trying to all the time to make things happen based on, well, I know that you can open a door for me. Let's talk about it a little bit more. But that's in my experience, that definitely does not work. It doesn't work. It doesn't get you what you want to be professionally, and more importantly, as a person. So.
Of course, yeah. I feel like especially LA, all of y'all are sort of based out here, and I think this whole town is networking. Mm-hmm. So like especially here, I feel like there is like an adverse reaction to that energy because people are tired. They just want to get their coffee, like they're in line getting Starbucks or something, and it's just, it's like one more thing. And I think really that authentic thinking about what is this person's life like and how are they doing in this moment is really the key to that. Dom, you were nodding a lot about making sure that it's genuine interest. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, before Berklee, I worked in Silicon Valley in IT. And so my mentors from that part of my life, it really was about directly addressing people who could open doors for you. The way that people network in Silicon Valley is very different than they might network in the entertainment community. So I think coming into Berklee and post Berklee, I had to readjust the way I thought about networking with people and building relationships. Like it really had to go from, oh, let me identify the 5 people who can get me to the next level of my career, to how can I build these genuine relationships with people? How can I find mentors? How can I be a mentor? How can I be of service? I think coming at the relationship building perspective from being of service to people, everybody needs help. And so if you extend yourself to people as someone who just wants to learn and be of service, then I think that folks will be more open. As far as moving to LA, I was the first person of my friend group to move to LA after graduation. We graduated May 11th and I started my internship June 12th. So I had like 30 days to find an apartment, pack up all my crap, and move from Boston to LA. And, you know, with that, I was in LA alone doing this internship. The internship was only 2 days a week. So I had the rest of the week to kind of do whatever I wanted to do. And I was out every night during my internship. Either I was at a jam session, I was at a panel about sync and licensing, which my internship was about, or I was at a panel about artistry. It didn't matter what it was. If it was music related, I was there. And then the other thing I would say is that I never just went to an event and then walked out at the end of it. I hung around, I met people, I asked them about their stories. People love to talk about themselves. So I asked them about like how they got to where they were. And if you let people, like, you'll get so much knowledge and so many nuggets that you don't know how much information you're storing in those conversations, but they'll come up right when you need them later. So I spent a lot of time just going out and talking to people, and it didn't even matter what they did in the music industry or in the entertainment industry in general. I just wanted to like get to know everyone, and anyone who lives in LA knows you can go out. Well, then you could go out every night and always find something to do. So by the time my friends got here, which was like October, November, I was like, these are the 3 spots that we need to go to every week. And then we could attack it from like a group effort, and then it's easier to divide and conquer. It's like if 2 events are happening in one night, we would seriously be like, all right, you go to this one, I'll go to this one. Or if like we were intimidated by something, it was less intimidating to approach it as a friend group, to be able to meet folks and things like that. So I just think, you know, putting yourself out there is the first step, and everybody's human, no matter how successful you perceive them to be. Like, everybody's human, so never be afraid to go up and introduce yourself to somebody, but just do it from a place of genuinely wanting to learn about them and not trying to push for, like Cheche was saying, like, don't try to push forward your own agenda. Like, learn about what they have going on and maybe how you can be of help to them, not how they can help you necessarily at first.
Yeah, that being of service theme, I think, is so key. That's a lot of sort of the way I feel like I observe these relationships that do really take root and really become these partnerships that last for decades. They're just people who are in your life. And I really do think that's a huge part of it. Thank you for saying that, Dom. Eric?
Go ahead. If you don't mind. Dom mentioned a very important word, and that is the mentor. And I would like to, you know, as quickly as possible, give you a slightly different, my slightly different take on mentorship. I think, and Dana, you and I have spoken about this in the past. I strongly believe that in arts in general, music in particular, people of all ages, young kids, college grads, people my age, people older than me, everyone believes like, well, if I do this, that will give me this result, right? It's like, it's almost like, oh, what is the answer for the next step? And as you have heard me say before many times, I strongly believe that is not true. That is a huge fallacy, and we have to be very aware of that, because what works for me and what worked for me will guaranteed not work for anybody else but me. And and we're uniquely unique, pardon me, right? So when it comes to mentorship, I will give again a very personal take on that super quickly. But I think everyone is very eager, almost desperate to find a mentor, because people seek that comfort by having that older person, parent figure, where like, okay, you know more, you will hold my hand, you will guide me through the next steps in these things, right? Not in a condescending way, hold my hand in a mentorship way. So I think people are very eager to find a mentor, and also older people are very eager to be called mentor, because he's like, well, check me out, I am her mentor, his mentor. It's and I think the mentor figure historically has been phenomenal. It's something that is extremely useful, but there's a reason why it's so rare, because not everyone needs a mentor, and way more importantly, by far, not everybody is a mentor or can be a mentor. So I would err on the side of say be very, very careful about who you possibly think, oh, this is my mentor, just because they're being nice to you, and it feels like, well, it's almost like people want to check that box, like, you're gonna be my mentor, okay, good. And the mentor does the same thing. And I'm telling you, because again, I'm older than you guys. People my age feel like, well, I'm mentoring a bunch of kids, and it's like, well, you have to understand that mentoring one person would be a lifelong, super involved duty, and a very deep and personal, and a very with very high ethical standards, particularly in music. So anyway, sorry, Dom, I picked on you bringing that word mentor, because I see that happen so much. It's like, oh yeah, he's my mentor, she's my mentor. I'm thinking, what? No, that's just another person that you work with, and just because they gave you a couple of bits of advice, that's let's be very careful on that, because it also puts the mentee at a very vulnerable spot, thinking, oh, this person has the answers. If I do this, this is the next step to get me where I want to be. And going back to my initial point, I strongly believe there's no set path for any of us. We have to figure out it as we go. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, let's spend a little time there, because I do think mentorship, right? That is like the number one question. Like, how do we get a mentor? I'm seeing some things in the chat right now. So let's spend a little time on that. Eric, you and I have talked about mentorship and folks that you think about as your mentor, and there have been multiple people and different variants. Can you speak a little bit to like, how do you find these humans, right? Is it you're living your life, this human presents themselves, or is it some kind of a formal, like, will you be my mentor? Like, speak a little bit to how those relationships evolve.
Yeah, I think kind of what Cheche is saying, it's like, I don't want to say like I'm the parent of someone, but it's like, yeah, I mean, actually, I am a parent of someone. I have a 4-week-old in the other room. But like, when you're becoming a mentor, it is a relationship where, there's trust. Like, obviously, I don't have all the answers, and I try to mentor in a way that like I'm speaking openly, and we put everything on the table to figure out like what's best for them. And I'm not telling them like, this is what I think you should do. Like, these are the options of what you could do. And it's up to you to make that decision. I can't tell you, because it's subjective to you. For me, I've had some mentors in LA. When I first moved here, I had a mentor that was an orchestrator, and I kind of just felt the relationship felt like an old high school teacher. So I automatically was cautious and made sure I wasn't bugging him too much, and said like, sorry if I'm asking too many questions. And if they say like, yeah, I can't get to this, I'm busy, then all right, then I guess this isn't a mentor relationship, but if they're taking the time to do it, then that's great. And then you show appreciation later in certain ways of, just remembering their birthday, or say, happy Thanksgiving or stuff like that. And you slowly kind of, you don't want to, you want to politely bug them. That used to be my thing. Like back in the day when I was networking with my mentor, before he became my mentor, I emailed him every Wednesday when I first moved here. Hey, do you need anything? Just let me know if I can help you. He said no, like every week for 2 months. And then finally he said, hey, do you know how to use Finale? I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, even if I didn't, I sure do, or I'll figure it out. And like, that's how that relationship started. And he started to trust me. And, at other jobs I've done, I've just had a nice relationship, a natural, friendly relationship that I trusted their word, and yeah, I trusted their advice. I didn't necessarily have to take it, but I, trusted from their experience. And some of them had good stuff, some of them didn't. And some, like Cheche was saying, like, you can't just put all your eggs in one basket of like, just tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. And like, you have to like kind of get like a group's opinion, I guess. If you have like 4 trusted people, and ask those 4 trusted people, and if they all say similar things, then maybe you're on the right path. If there's different things, then it's still up to you. There is no right or wrong answer to mentorship. So I still keep in touch with my mentors. I still keep in touch with my high school teachers, like some of my band teachers, because they were so good to me. And I sometimes even talk to them about things I'm doing now. And I think it's a really good relationship, but you need to remember that they're not your parent. Like, they may not, and even parents don't necessarily have all the right or wrong answers, but like, you have to treat that relationship with respect, and they can't just give you everything. It takes time to build those relationships. And one of the key things I say about networking is it's kind of like dating. Now, keep in mind, I haven't dated in a very long time. I've been married for 7 years. We've dated for 10 years. So never did the online dating or whatever. But I will say, like, you don't want to introduce yourself and say like, hey, my name's Eric. I'm a drummer, arranger, orchestrator, music supervisor. I like to run, blah, blah. Like, that's way too much information off the bat. Like, I can't even process like where to start. Like, you kind of, if I'm gonna talk to a guitarist or something, and they're like, what do you do, Eric? I'm like, oh, I'm a drummer. And like, I find the topic that we can talk to together, not a topic that like 5 different things that they can't relate to, or like I need to explain what that means. Like, if I say the word music supervisor, it means 2 different things. In the musical theater world, the music supervisor is kind of like a music director at the same time. But in my world of licensing, a music supervisor handles all of the licensing and creative as well for music. So sometimes I feel like I'm not talking down to someone, but I feel kind of like weird having to explain my job to someone who like doesn't, I don't want to make them feel bad about them not knowing. Like, most people don't know what that is. So, you kind of need to pick the hat you're wearing for that situation and wear that hat. Don't wear a different hat, because it's not going to cross over well. It's like, like I said, if you're on a date and you have 2 different things that are not blending, I mean, you're going to have to find a way to get back to it and have a common, trait or whatever. But it's all about finding the right hat to wear at that time. So yeah,
Amazing.
That's what I have.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great. No, I think there's so much in what you said that is it's so much bigger than making relationships for career, right? It's a little bit about having perspectives in your life and having sources you can turn to get perspective. Because like Cheche said, I think all of you have said this at this point, like, no one's path is the same. What works for me may not work for Cheche, will not work for Dom, will not work for Eric, will not work for Nira. Like, we're all these unique individuals and we all experience the world differently. So what makes me feel comfortable may not be what makes other people feel comfortable, and vice versa. And so whoever I'm building a relationship with, that that balance has to be there, or else we're sort of operating at different wavelengths, which is a very LA way to put it. But apparently I have officially become an LA person. I'm gonna move to the next question. So let's think about that strategy a little bit more and spend some time. I have a lot of questions about the like how to find a mentor. We've kind of talked about just going out and allowing yourself to be drawn to people for hopefully an authentic reason, or there's something that they've talked about that is interesting to you. But once you've made that initial connection, we talked a little about being respectful about people's boundaries and not being too pestery. But how do you decide how much energy you are going to put into a relationship? I mean, I think it's not mind-blowing to say that we're always being connected, we're always being contacted. This is a very social experience, this world that we're living in, even in this what am I trying to say? I don't know. Even in this situation, in the pandemic, even in this space, I'm still getting outreach from a lot of people all the time, maybe even more so on social media. So how do you decide, and how do you lean into your intuition? Is it, do you feel like you have a lot in common with these people? How do you decide which relationships you invest in? Because you touched on, you're not giving everybody your bio right up front. It's kind of like, here's this one touch point we've had this nice little nugget of a conversation, but you don't know everything from that. So how do you decide what you put more into, and which relationships you invest in? Let's go to Dom first for this one.
I would say one of the top things to me is read the room. Like, I feel like you know what kind of vibes you're getting from someone. So in terms of deciding how much time to invest, if they're giving you the leave me alone vibe, like, you can probably feel that. And like, don't take it personally. Everybody has their own stuff going on. Read the room. If someone is showing genuine interest, then, maybe try to build on that. The other thing that I would say is that as far as like deciding what you're gonna pursue as far as building relationships, I think that the entertainment industry is so broad, and you can become unfocused on the thing that you really want to do very easily. And so it's easy for me I'm in sync and licensing. That's really where my focus is. But it's easy for me to be like, oh, she's the head of A&R at blah, blah, blah. Let me go talk to her. But like, A&R is not where my focus is. And this might be a great relationship, but should I be putting all my energy into building that when I know someone else in sync and licensing that might be a better fit? I think it's about really thinking about what you're personally trying to achieve and accomplish and focusing on it. There's nothing wrong with meeting different people from different parts of the industry, because that is important, but it's also important not to be super unfocused about what you're trying to accomplish, because I think that can be a distraction. It can also make you take longer to reach your goal if you're so unfocused because you just want to meet everyone who looks successful. Like, don't get so caught up in the aesthetic of success that you lose track of your own success.
A good point. Nira, do you have anything to add on that?
I'm writing that down. Aesthetic of success. Oh my God.
Nira's taking notes.
It's funny. Actually, thank you, Donna, for calling on me, because as you were talking, Dom, well, first of all, I wanted you to go first, Dom, because I'm really curious about how you had a friend group that would infiltrate multiple events in one night. That was like, what?
This is why Dom is on this panel. Like,
yeah, that was like next level. That's incredible. But the aesthetic of success is what you just said, and I was sort of thinking like the cool factor, which I feel like is very much a similar, like basically a synonym, and I was thinking about how it's changed a lot for me over time in this sense, as well as in terms of what I value and what I choose to invest in, because I think in the beginning it was I was very much pulled towards like who seems to be doing something cool, like who do other people think is cool, which is a really, especially I think in Los Angeles, it's a really like tough thing to get sucked into, because it is sort of like you know, a place of coolness where a lot of cool stuff is happening, whatever. And I think there was a lot of years where I was sort of like, I had an element of like, this is not, I'm not recommending this, it's not pretty, but like an element of like, well, what do you have to offer me? And are you cool? Because I want to be cool and I don't know if you're cool. And sort of feeling out relationships in that way. And I'm not, you know, proud of that, but I also think it kind of comes with growing up and learning who you are. And now at this point, I'm actually having an interesting experience in the last couple of years with as I, you know, keep a lot of beautiful friendships, but also keep, you know, always meeting new people, is I'm starting to connect with what I actually think is cool personally. And I'm finding as I reach out to the other people who, like, I found a woman a while back at I went to a performance and she was in one of the performance rooms playing a guzheng with this like Chinese instrument and singing, and her voice was incredible. And I was like, who is this? Like, I'm like literally looking around like, why is no one else listening to this, you know, performer right now? And I found her on Instagram. I like fangirled. I just went all out. And I was like, you know, I'm 32 and I think she's, you know, a bit younger than me. And I've been here forever, and I'm thinking like, she's not going to write me back on Instagram because she's so cool that like there's no way. and we, you know, we're developing a really lovely friendship. I just went over and we had, you know, a nice hang on her patio, and we've had some really good talks, and she was, you know, so happy to hear from me. I even I started volunteering at the local animal shelter, and this being Los Angeles, most of my fellow volunteers are in the industry, coincidentally, in areas that I'm really interested in getting into, and they've all been super cool, you know, but it's been sort of an off the beaten path approach for me, where I'm just following my instinct and intuition, as you said, Donna, and just finding like who do I want to be, and who do I find that's like, ooh, like, I don't care what anyone else says, like, this is the shit. Like, I want more of this person in my life. And that's been probably the most successful and fulfilling relationships that I've had so far.
Amazing. I'm going to just pivot over. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I was just going to jump in on a couple of things that were said before I lose it. Okay. So what I was going to talk about, kind of similar to what Nira was saying about like gigs and networking with other artists to figure out, you know, like, are you cool enough or something like that. Back in the day, I used to take every single gig that came my way. I was way too afraid to sub out my stuff because I wanted to be available to everyone. And so I took all these gigs that weren't necessarily worth my time, and I wasn't learning as well. I was just taking gigs to show that I was available. Now, did I like doing all these gigs? Not really. Some of the people I played with, I didn't respect because they were kind of jerks. And some gigs I really liked. And the quantity wasn't the same as the quality. So over time, like, I started to learn, like, oh, I'm networking with these people and taking these gigs because I feel like I have to, but I don't need to. And, you know, I have a wife, and like, I was not seeing her so much because I was taking all these gigs because I kept thinking I had to keep doing them. But over time, you learn, like, you know, just because someone is the greatest guitarist in the world that you're playing with doesn't mean that they are the nicest person in the world. You know, they may not be a great hang. Like, you might rather want to play with someone who isn't as famous or as popular, but it's just a really good hang. And so what I learned over time is that networking wasn't working, of spreading myself so thin. I had to narrow it down. And you kind of go through those 3 bullet points of like, is this going to move my career forward? Do I enjoy it? Or am I here for the money? And, you know, it's got to be 2 of those, I would say. You know, it doesn't even have to be for the money. It can just be fun and you like the people, and that's okay. And that kind of stuff can even push you to more gigs that will maybe pay and have better exposure, and you'll meet new people that are similar minded to the one that you like. So I think spreading yourself too thin could be a negative. And I think it's great that Dom and her friends are conquering all the events, and that's good. I'm glad you can. For me, over time, after doing that so much in terms of gigs, it really helped my psyche. It helped relationships, and I could build more on the people I liked, as opposed to like, maybe cutting them off because I took a random gig that was completely unnecessary. And then the other thing I would say with the networking is I have a lot of networks outside of music, because I took some chances and took some new ideas of like things I wanted to do personally. Like I became a runner like almost 10 years ago, and then I joined some like marathon training groups, and just through that, not even mentioning music, someone saw my email signature, and this person said, "Hey, I work at Native Instruments for marketing. Like, you're a composer, right? Like, do you need any libraries or something?" Like, yeah, that sounds great, and like, let's have a relationship. And like, he just offered it, and like, I wasn't gonna ask for it ever, but it was the start of something where we met in something outside of what we always do, and always talking about it. And truthfully, with my networking, I almost prefer to never talk about music ever. Like in the first like one or two hangouts, I'd rather talk about like, where are you from? Do you do any sports? What TV are you watching? Like anything except music, because that's what we do all day. Like I honestly, like when I was driving to work, when we all used to do that, I would listen to podcasts more than music, because I'm learning about other things that I can bring to the table, because you don't want to be the person with your significant other meeting their friends who may not be in music. And they say, "What do you do?" And I say, "I'm a musician," and that's all I can talk about. If you can only talk about music, then you're stuck in your music circles. If your significant other maybe has a friend whose boyfriend's cousin works at this label or this studio, like that's when you can start to build it just based off something that's nothing to do with music. I just think you'll grow more by doing things outside of your main thing and being able to talk about it, because you just never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like we really have no idea what people do when we're meeting them in these different spaces, and we all are interested in more than one thing. Obviously, we all are dedicated to music, but there's so many things that make a person, and you never really know if you like put some eggs in that basket for a while, who also is going to put some eggs in that basket, and who might you meet? I mean, Nira, you mentioned volunteering for the animal shelter that you volunteer with, like meeting folks there. And I hear this from folks who like join a hiking group or they join a hockey league. And like, especially in LA, y'all are all based in LA, especially in LA, like you join a league, somebody works at Warner, someone works at Universal, like it's just the way it is. And I often think that those sort of, oh, I met you by happenstance, you didn't seek me out, there's this trust thing that is there where it's like, oh, you really actually do want to talk to me, the person, not me, the title. And I do think that's a really specific point to make. I want to do a few questions from the folks who have been typing here. But we talked a lot about the authenticness of building. Let's talk a little bit about this virtual space that we're living in now. How do you feel about social media? How do you feel about it in relationship to networking? Do you feel like it's a hindrance? Do you feel like it's an asset? How do you make sense of it all, and how does it all kind of tie together for you? Let's go. Cheche, do you want to start? I know social media is your favorite thing to talk about.
I have to? No. Well,
Cheche passes.
if anything, okay, I'll touch on this quickly. I think at this point, I look at social media as almost as a necessary evil. I think it has professionally, it has become necessary, and it's a big gamble to disconnect and not do it. Although I think like most of us, I go through cycles where I'm like, I had enough of this anyway. I think through what we're going through as a species, and this year in particular, and with technology, the message out there is that you get to see the best and the worst of people. Sorry to say this on a beautiful sunny day, I think you get to see mostly the worst of people and some of the best. and it's up to you to pursue that and to make sure that you don't let social media and media in general bring things into your life that would literally cloud up your day right away. I'm a news buff. I love being up to speed in in world affairs, and I pride myself in knowing the names of people in cabinets in other countries and all that. But lately, for the first time in my life, I'm taking a step back, because I realized if my one of the things I like to do was to wake up and and after working out or doing some exercise, literally dive into news from all over the world and from all walks of life. And I realized that lately it was not putting me in a nice space of in a nice space of mind, for obvious reasons, but also because it's just too much, and it's up to us to be like, okay, what do I do? How much of this I do? Focusing into social media, I think when it comes to social media and what we do for a living, to me the most important thing to keep in mind is networking in any shape or form, whether it's meeting somebody or social media or hey, somebody introduced me to this person, blah blah blah. It's a means to get an opportunity to do what we love to do, which is music. So the most important element of networking to me is your craft, is your music. So let your music do the talking. And most of the time, you will not have to worry about networking strategies, social media strategies. Not to say that you don't have to do them, but they become the smaller part of it. Your music, your craft, your art will do most of the talking and will open the most doors for for you. If I'm kind of like recapping what we're talking about, how you interact with other people, in situations. I think anyone, particularly anyone who's a Berklee grad, has all the elements not to mess that up, because they have to do with music. If you ever jammed or played on an ensemble, you know that if you're playing guitar, you have to find that balance of like, okay, I'm going to give you harmony, I want to give you a little bit of rhythm, I want to make sure that I'm not too freaking loud or too soft. But these things have to do with human interaction. If you're the drummer, you want to make sure that you're not like literally playing, going Vini Colaiuta every beat, like while people are trying to say things that are way more simple and they need space. It's like dancing. It's like you don't make sure it's like, how do you make sure that you don't step on other people's toes? Well, shit, listen to the music, get a vibe of how the other person you're dancing with is doing it, and it will happen naturally. It will happen naturally. I really, really strongly believe that music and our craft is what we have to focus on. And this side of things, networking and everything, it's important, but we should try to keep them to the absolute minimum and let the artistic part of what we do to carry that, because that is really what we're here for. And one thing that I would humbly recommend, particularly for younger people, is please don't become serial networkers. That's such a a real thing, and such a if you're the person that I want to go to this event, I'm sure I want to see such and such, because she goes to every event or he goes to every event. It's like you don't want to be, what is that? It's great to, don't get me wrong, it's great to be in this, but you don't want to be this person who's known for being a networker. You want to be this person who's a badass at your craft, who also is cool socially, or somebody that you want to be. And going back, I'm sorry, I'm trying to recap a bunch of things that we talked about. Nira talked about this in the beginning, and about being an introvert. Not everyone can be an extrovert. It will be crazy if everyone was. So the more that you're aware that, like, what, I'm not really comfortable like going into an event and introducing myself and starting to talk to people. Well, focus more on your craft and try to get as little as possible to get your music heard, and that will open. That will open. If your music is good, if your craft is good, it will open doors. It will open doors like you won't believe it, and your work ethic, and and you being showing up on time and meeting deadlines and being reliable and going the extra mile and coming 100% for the project when there's a lot of money and 100% when there's no money. That's what makes you a good human being. People go like, hey, I can call this person. She's got my back. Sorry to go all over the place with different things, but
no, I think it's really important. And I think the fact that we all have different relationships with this stuff is also really important. I feel like that's been the theme of everything, is that everybody's different. I'm just going to get a theme song. Dom, you use social media in a really strategic way, I feel like. Not that I enjoy your feed and look at it every day, but I do. But I feel like you really do. You segment elements of your feed to push forward the things that you're working on. And how does that relate to you making connections? Do you make connections via social media? Are you using like the LinkedIn, the Instagrams? Or is it really about meeting people in person? Or is it both?
I mean, obviously at this point, I'm not meeting people in person. But I would say that the reason that my social media looks the way it does now is because I wanted to find the least stressful way for me to engage with social media. I think because I've worked in tech, I know how the algorithms work. I know that if you are inactive for a certain period of time, you'll lose engagement, blah, 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 all the nerdy tech stuff around social media. But also I know that I, as a person, do not want to be constantly posting on social media. So it was basically like, what are the things that I want to put into the world on social media? Okay, I want to do this, this, and this. Actually, myself and Jarrell, who Donna, sat down at in December and said, okay, these are the things you're going to post on social media on these days every week. This is the schedule that you're going to keep to be able to do this weekly. And so then, I'm anal about scheduling. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. So, I set up this system for myself to be able to do that in a way that doesn't make me feel personally like overwhelmed by the idea of having constant visibility or people having constant access to me. I think that's a thing about social media that I don't like, is that people feel entitled to you in a way that can be uncomfortable. And so that's why it looks the way it looks. But I have met people through social media. I met someone who works at one of the big three, basically told me, don't email me, only DM me on Instagram. And so I think sometimes when you're trying to build relationships with people, you also have to figure out their preferred communication style. And the younger generation of executives, a lot of times will tell you, just DM me on Instagram. So you might think that the way to go is to add them on LinkedIn, and that's they'll never get on their LinkedIn profile. It's literally a placeholder. They'll never engage with this. So also figuring out that part is really important. But I am on LinkedIn a lot just because there is also a different sector of people who do engage on LinkedIn a lot. There's also a lot of professional information just on LinkedIn. I think that's useful to me about like panels, Guild of Music Supervisors. There's all of these specialized groups and things in the industry that you can engage with if you're on social media. But you just have to find what's best for you. I think that if your personality type is such that social media stresses you out, then you have to find a workaround for that. Like I had to find a workaround for that, because I would be super consistent for like 3 weeks and then I wouldn't post for like a month. And like that wasn't gonna work with how social media is set up. So I needed to find a way that I could be consistent, but that I could also keep a level of comfort for myself personally.
Perfect. Nira or Eric, how do you feel about social media? Do you LinkedIn? Is it something you hate, or what's your approach to it?
Nira, do you want to go or do you want me to go? I'll go. Okay. It's obviously it's a love-hate relationship, and it's something you need to learn to get comfortable with. I would say social media has helped me get one of my biggest networking relationships within the past year or so. In 2019, last January, I was talking with my wife and just saying how, like, oh, I did all these arrangements at Berklee that I haven't had time to do again with an ensemble. And I really want to do that. And I miss that kind of stuff. And the type of arrangements I do are not similar to Scary Pockets and not similar to Postmodern Jukebox, but within the same world of like taking System of a Down song and making it bossa nova, or like Justin Timberlake's Cry Me a River and make it like an a cappella tango and stuff like that. So like when I saw these things, I thought like, oh, they just did what I do or used to do. And I wish I could do that now, but it's someone else is doing it. So I was talking to my wife and I said, you know what? I want to do it, but just for me. Like, I'm not looking to make a band or a huge ensemble or a big following. I just want to do it for me. So I started to release a video once a week. And I hated hashtags. I hated the idea of that. I didn't really get it. And just once a week, my friends were seeing that I was putting out a drum video. And I started real small. It was just me on drums on my electronic kit. I didn't have this room yet. I had like a different room, which is now our baby room. So I used the electronic drums, and then I slowly brought in pianists like Nira. Nira did one of my videos. But I just slowly was doing that. And after about 2 months, an old coworker of mine from Alfred Music Publishing, a job I worked at almost 10 years ago, called me through Facebook Messenger. And I ignored it the first time. I said, like, who the hell calls someone else on Facebook Messenger? Like, that's a wrong, he didn't mean to call me. A couple of days go by. He does it again while I'm at lunch with a friend. I'm like, what? So I pick it up and he's like, hey, Eric, I want to talk to you about something. I know it's been a while since we've spoken. And then I said, let me call you back. And he told me that he is the president of the American division of a drum company that's based in Italy called Tamburo. And he said, I want you to be a demo artist and endorser for America. You'd be the first one. And it's all because of me just throwing out some videos, because I reminded people, like, everyone knows I'm a drummer, but I haven't posted a ton of videos lately. So I did. And then I went to Italy back in September and I toured the factory, and I went to NAMM in January, and I have a couple of kits with them. And it's all because I just reminded everyone that this is what I do. It wasn't like, 10 posts a week about drums. It's just I did a consistent thing. And then I went from 2 people in the room to 3 to 5 to I did a 10-person video 2 weeks before the coronavirus started. Everyone's fine, but this was before quarantine. So when I released it, I had to say, like, this was not recorded yesterday. This was recorded like a month ago with 10 people in this room. So it started to remind my other contacts that are not musicians that I was a drummer and I was a arranger. And so I met another person through that who followed my videos. We met up for coffee back in like December, and now I do some of his videos and he does some of mine. And it's like, the social media, you do have to keep it consistent. It's a little annoying, but you have to in order to get your followers and to get the awareness. At the same time, we are in a very odd place, the pandemic, where once the stay-at-home order started, everyone started to do videos. And they were all doing it from their own homes. And it was cool for a while, and not to say that's not cool, but then there was too much content. And what happened was you'd start to become numb with it. And it's like, okay, like I get it. Like we're all losing out on gigs. Like I haven't had a gig since February, and I used to do gigs weekly, as I'm sure we all have. So, there was a period where I didn't want to do videos. And honestly, I haven't done a video since like April or May because I needed a break. And this is all a really hard time for all of us. And there was a quote that Sarah Bareilles put up. It was a big poem. And what I really liked about the poem, and this is kind of the opposite of networking, but bear with me with this topic. We are in a period right now in our lives where we are allowed to rest. We are allowed to take a break from everything right now because things are really hard. So even though I had a list of things, April, like first week of April, like, all right, I'm home. I'm going to learn how to do this and this. I'm going to make all these videos and this and that. I have all this time. Like, you don't have to. Like, you can, and that's great, but don't be discouraged if the networking and the social media engagement and all this is not happening like it did. We're entering a new normal where, you know, all of our advice that we're giving is pretty generic in a way that it's not in person right now. It's good things to live by, but we're going to have to go into a new territory of having to network through social media. If you were afraid of it before, it might become the new normal, where you need to get comfortable with writing an email, but make sure it's a short, concise email that doesn't list all your credentials. It has to do with DMs, it has to do with posting and hashtags, and that's going to be the new thing, because to be honest, I don't think anyone's going to want to meet up in person for a while. It's going to take some time. And if you do, wear a mask. So, you know, in terms of social media, again, I will get back to making videos. I will get back to engaging. The other thing too is I just had a baby. My wife and I just had a baby a month ago. So I'm in a new way of organizing my life, of juggling a baby, juggling my career, and then when I have time, get back to this. And I do, and that's the other thing about what you do with your career. Justine Taramino gave me this great advice like 5 years ago, where, because I told her how many interests I have. Like, it's obvious, like I do this and this and this, and if I'm doing one thing, I wish I was doing the other. If I did that, I wish I was back to the other thing. You need to think of your life as a pie chart, where everything you do, I don't care if it's like 100 pie slices or if it's 5, they're all within the pie. And even if something, like there's something that could be 80% of your time or 1% of your time or 20%, and you can base it on a month or a week or a day, the fact that it's still in that pie chart means you're doing it. It's just not as big of a slice as what it could be the next week or day. So for me right now, the pie slice of social media and drumming is a little bit smaller than my slice of being a dad. And guess what? I still come in here. I get to drum when she's napping. She's far away from the room, so I'm not waking her up. But you know, I get to drum and I'm thinking about something like, oh, that'd be cool to do this. Well, let me table that, make a note, come back to it, go back to being a dad, feed her every 3 hours, all that kind of stuff. The point being is that your pie charts are going to be all over the place right now because of what's going on, but it's okay. It'll come back. So that's, I know I went a kind of off topic, but on topic. So I hope that helps.
Listen, I'm always down for the themes of take care of yourself and listen to yourself. I feel like I should just make this my thing. But I do feel like a lot of these panels and a lot of what we do, we end up talking about mental health. And like, it's such a big part of what we do because we live our passions and we live what we are interested in. And when what you love becomes your job, that gets complicated. When your personal relationships become your professional relationships, that gets complicated, right? And so we sit in this space as creators, as entrepreneurs, where everything is really blurry. And so if we're not being thoughtful about how we're feeling, right, you're speaking so much to about being aware that you've had changes in your life, right? There's a lot of times when we're like, something changed, but I'm going to just keep going. I'm going to keep going exactly the way I've gone because I've just got to muscle through it. And like, that never works because you can't just muscle through life. Something in that pie chart gets askew, right? We only have the pie chart. You only have your one pie. You can't just go take somebody else's pie. That's not how it works. You have your pie and you have to deal with your pie. So I think
one more thing. Sorry, Dan. Yeah. One more thing I was going to say is, with everything going on, we're going to have to do things that we didn't ever expect we're going to do, like take jobs that are not in music. And you know what? There's plenty of jobs I've done within the music industry that wasn't necessarily creative. It was more administrative. And you know what? That's okay, because we need to do what keeps us living and healthy and making money and supporting our families and ourselves. And if you have to do something that you weren't coming here to do, it's okay. You can still do everything that you want to do. If you don't have the energy to do music outside of your day job, that's okay. You'll find the time, but just keep in mind, like, this is a tough time right now where you're just gonna have to find other jobs to support the dream of what you want to do later.
If I may, adding, I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying, Eric, 1,000%. Making a connection between that and social media, I think there's always been a very, very blurry, sometimes almost invisible line between sharing and bragging about, well, what we do, because yes, it is our ways of promoting our business, but it's also, you know, it reaches people that are our peers, our friends, that might not be able to, you know, to do as well as we are that day. And we all know, you know, everything looks like, you know, every breakfast is the best breakfast ever in history. Really? Come on. They just cannot be. But so that part of social media to me has always been the questionable. You know, is this sharing or bragging? Now, when you go to like very clear over the top examples, like people, you know, like posting with, you know, this is my new Lambo, you know, that was, in my eyes, that always has been like bullshit. But now, in these current times where people are struggling to find work, they might not have money to pay the rent, that is just not bullshit. That is obscene, and pardon me, is fucking wrong. So
yeah, it definitely lands differently.
It's just like, don't do that. That's just wrong. This is not, if you're doing well, be very careful about how you share it, you know, right now, because you're very fortunate. You know, I keep telling my friends right now, you know, like, any gig, whatever it is, not a live gig, but any job that you have right now counts as having 20 jobs a year ago, because there's not that much work. So be thankful, make sure, be extra careful to share it properly, because there are people that are literally about to starve. So like, let's be nice to each other. Let's be cool. You know, we're in this thing for the long haul. You know, that aspect of social media, I think we have to be very, very, very aware of.
What's a relationship? I think that's actually a great segue, and maybe that's where we'll wrap up. But social media, there's a lot of questions about it in the chat, but social media is relationship building too. And shameless plug, on Thursday, we have our Engaging a Social Audience webinar. But real talk, like, that is the trick, right? If Nira and I only communicated over social media and all I did was shout about the amazing webinars I'm doing, and all she did was tell me about the tracks that she's gotten placed, our relationship would be very different, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't call her and see if she's actually functioning as a person, we don't have a relationship. We're mutually using each other. And that doesn't feel good to anybody.
Still does that, so thank you.
Just want to make sure you're okay. Like, you know, we're all going through it. And I do think that social media can be a tool. It can also be a weapon. It's very powerful. And I think that you all hit on that really well. So thank you for sharing your perspectives on that. I think it's unavoidable. It's part of our world now. And it's just all about how we deal with it and how we manage it. Just like cars, the first time that there were cars, people were really scared of cars. They were going to ruin everything. I just watched Downton Abbey again. Cars were like scary, and it's just really funny. We have these new things and these cycles and these human behaviors, and we're all just people. This whole session has been about, like, how do you people? This whole session is like, if there's a person that you want to know, how do you know them? And how do you do it in a way where it's going to take root and where it's going to grow into something, and where it won't be another cold email that's unanswered. So I hope that there were good tips and tricks that y'all took away with. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to be sending an email out. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I want to hear any topics that y'all want to talk about in the future. It's super important that we get feedback on these webinars so that I can adjust and that we can do better in the future and present things that are really, like, resonating with y'all. So thank all 4 of you for, like, being real about what we're living through right now. Real talk, like, this is not nothing, and it's upheaval in a number of different ways, and we all still have to function and somehow make money and continue on with building relationships and not bumming each other out. So thank you so much for contextualizing everything we're going through and bringing your energy and your light, because that is what's going to carry us all through. I'm just super grateful that at least my job is just to plug into this light every day, and I soak it up. Thank you so much for everything, you guys.
Thank you for
We're
having
gonna
us.
sign off.
Thanks,
Okay.
Donna.